Nice chunk of junk coming out of the tank that I took off the other day. It's all rust and crud. Alright, so this thing is fully rotted out. I did half of it the other day and half of it today. Now, the one thing that I did better was I made a plug like this, stuck it in the bottom radiator port and blocked it off, and filled this entire thing with water through the tubes. And that way the rods that go in here were very nicely lubricated, and it would float off the rusty crud. And it really made things go well. Then I took the plug off the bottom down there, see right here, and then flushed it all out, and it just came out clean as a whistle. So flushing is a great process when radiators are still in your car, but it makes the assumption that you do the flushing often enough so this stuff doesn't build up. Now, I probably had, on this side, I probably had 5 partially plugged tubes, just on, I forget which side I did today. 5 partially plugged tubes, and then, oh yeah, I did this side today. No, the side that the port comes out of right here, the fitting. So I did this side today, and I had about 5 partially plugged and probably 4 or 5 completely plugged ones, maybe only 4. So if we're looking at 10 fully plugged ones out of 50 something, that's, you know, we're looking at 20% almost. And then maybe another 10, 15%, maybe 20% partially plugged. That's a lot. That's an awful lot. So the other thing I did while I was in here is I gently pulled out the O-ring because they're kind of hard to find. There's some rust stuck to it. I'm going to gently clean it. I can see the rust is cracked, but I can't see if the O-ring's cracked. So I'll have to clean this really well inside because we're going to reuse it. The tank is bowed in a little. See that? The sides are bowed in a little, but if you push it down hard enough with not much force, it drops. It pops right into place. So I think what we'll use is ratchet straps to tie this together. Harbor Freight has 36-inch those clamps that you can pump, and that would be okay, except it's only an hour each way to get there. So I think I'm going to just use ratchet straps because they'll come across the top of the tank nice and smooth without damaging anything. And I just worry that the friction will pull them off to the side a little bit like that. Let's see. Because when you put a ratchet strap on, the strap comes across and it's always pulling. So I don't know how that's going to work. This has this big chamfer on it, so that might help stop that. But I probably put one here and maybe one here and one here. It'll pull it down so tight against that O-ring that we may not have to use any of the silicone. It's supposed to come in the mail today. Anyway, this thing's fully rotted. Yes, it was a lot of work. It's a lost craft. This is the 88, 89, well no, 87 to 90 radiator. It has no radiator cap on it. Well, you can see if you look at the top all the way down, no cap. And here's what I thought about doing. Now you can buy a radiator like this for 85 bucks online, or if you have the later version that has the radiator cap, you can get them for 50 bucks off of eBay. Now what I was thinking of doing is this is the tank that comes with the radiator cap. See that circle right here? That's where the radiator cap elbow goes when it's molded in. Now the difference is the older ones take a male compression fitting, flare fitting, and the newer version takes female. Well, you know, alright, so if I unscrew this, then I have a female. The problem is the fitting under the hood that goes on here is female, so I may have to just unscrew this and screw it into the new radiator, and then I'm good. So if I can go to the junkyard and get a tank that has a radiator cap connection on it, I could drop it in here and I'd have a modern radiator, but I'd have all brass. And I got news for you, brass will outlast plastic or anything else, or or I mean aluminum. I like aluminum. I've had fully aluminum radiators in the past. In a Honda I had. Anyway, so this groove needs to get cleaned out really well all the way around. You don't want to scratch it because you're trying to make it a sealing surface. So maybe, I don't know, fine Scotch-Brite, I don't know, clean it up really good so it's sterile, and clean up the O-ring, and we might be able to reuse it. I don't like that idea, but I won't get to the junkyard anytime soon. So once I do, if I can get a busted radiator cheap, it's gouged, it's beat up, but the tank's okay, I might be able to get it cheap enough to add that onto here. That having a radiator cap on this thing, I think, would be absolutely excellent. Because then when the Jeep's up high like that, the highest point would be the radiator cap. So I think what I'll do next time is drive the ramps up, drive the rear wheels up the ramps, and then in the back corner of the hood back in here where that bottle is, it would be the highest point, so the air would go there. Because remember, when I pulled this out, there was no water in it. And I said, oh, it must be fully plugged. Well, it wasn't fully plugged. I filled it in such a way that probably the water filled the back of the block, worked its way forward, and I'm still making an assumption that the radiator cap is, or the thermostat's not dead, you know, frozen closed or something. So picked up this from our local auto parts store, and can you see the little valve in there, the little rivet? See that? The light's coming through. That's basically a one-way valve that lets air through before it opens, and it helps keep the air purged out of the system. Cummins Dodges, which I also own, require 2 or 3 of those. So that is a slick system. It helps. So I'll be pulling that thermostat housing off, and it leaks like a sieve. That thing's got a bad leak, so that thermostat might even be installed incorrectly. So that's easy to get to now because everything's out of the way. Radiator's right here. This is the piece I made to plug that up. It's 1.25 inch aluminum, couple hose clamps. I just chopped it off my perfectly good junkyard hose, but that's what it was for. And then to plug the other end, I just chopped this off, and I have a bigger piece of aluminum. It's too big right now. I got to turn it down to fit in there. But one or both of these is going to get a hole drilled in it, and then tapped with a 1/4 inch pipe tap, and that means I can take an air fitting, screw it in, and then bring my compressor air regulator down to 15 psi and feed it in here and pressurize this whole thing and check it for leaks that way. And I like that a lot. Leak checking your work is a big deal. So the other thing I noticed, just as a side note, I doubt you can see it very well. Let's try it in the sun here. Can you see that brass part for the transmission cooler, it's actually hollow? Now that'll give more surface area to the water to cool it off, but that's not much of a transmission cooler. Most of them are better than that. That's lousy. I would recommend, after seeing this, that everybody puts in an external transmission cooler. That's not very good. The AW4s last a long time, I think, but you could do better. This could be done better. This was just minimal expense. Somebody put in a bid and won, and this is what everybody got. I think it could be done a lot better. Anyway, some of the tools you need, okay, you need an old radiator hose, so you can chop it, and then a hose chopper works like a charm. Scraps of this could be PVC pipe, PVC end caps, anything that fits in here. They're different size. One's 1.25 inches and the other one's 1 inch and, now I don't remember, 3/8, 1.5 inches maybe. So you need something that'll fit that one and fit that one if you decide to do this on your own. And caps are thick enough you can tap them and drop in a air fitting and all that stuff. But man, you have to regulate your pressure down to next to nothing. You don't want to blow it up. So these are the same thread here. This is totally the wrong fitting. This is from 30 years ago when I was figuring out which fittings to use. But anyway, that will, the correct one will be sticking out just like that. So I can pressurize the radiator and check for leaks. And that'll help inspect re-crimping this on, and it will also help to see if there's any leaks anywhere else. That's the flaw with the that plastic tank that sits back in the corner, the overflow tank. The adapter to adapt it to a pressure tester is like 35 bucks. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think I'd almost rather have a new radiator with the right cap on it, because that's kind of silly. But being able to pressure check your system is everything on a Jeep. There's lots of reasons they overheat. A lot of it's just the nut behind the wheel. So in my case, that might be true too. So anyway, it's done. Our work of art, labor of love, is finished. I love it. It was a lot of work. I'm glad I did it. Those rods, the copper wore off the ends of them. One dipstick is fine. It's just for breaking through, you know, a gross clog, but those other ones finish the job, and you have to finesse them because you'll bend them. But it was worth it, because now I know this thing is sterile clean inside. So, and it's brass, so this radiator I hope to keep in operation forever. I didn't know they were brass. This must have been right in the era where they were converting from brass soldered on tanks to crimped on tanks. It's cheaper, and there's less lead involved. Removal of harmful substances, ROHS, may have come into play back then. You got to get the lead out of the recycling loop, so you get lead out of the radiators. Now these are obviously all soldered to this header, but still there's a lot less lead around the perimeter, which is where most of it is, I think. Anyway, she's done. I'm going to straighten out some of the fins on the face, just because I like to let my OCD out and perfect things that don't really matter. I'm rambling. Gotta run. Thanks. See you. Bye.